Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a brand new edition of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your Friday mornings, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful end of the week and have a wonderful weekend planned in front of you guys. We got a packed show lined up for you guys, as always. We saw last night we had a big Game 5 in MSG in New York between the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks. The Knicks taking this one 111-94. We'll start off the show recapping this game because it was a massive game. And is there something to worry about? Do the Pacers, have something to worry about in this series moving forward as this series switches over to Indiana for a big Game 6? Obviously, the Knicks do not hold home court advantage yet, but with their backs up against the wall right now, they showed up in a big moment last night. We have a lot to discuss with that. Also, how does this who does this series play in favor more for as this series draws on? Does it play in favor of the Thunder by chance? As the Thunder have some more time to rest before this NBA Finals kicks off starting next Thursday. Overall, there's just a lot to discuss with the series in general. Also, we'll discuss a little bit about Caitlin Clark's injury as she sustained about a week ago now. We haven't had a whole lot to talk about, but that'll be on the agenda for later on in the show. And then to close out, we'll discuss some weekend predictions. Can the New York Knicks force a Game 7 on Monday morning? Or Monday night? That's the question. Game 6 is slated for Saturday night, and I'll give my prediction on that and what to expect throughout the weekend. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on air, ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But let's get right back into it here, because we had a big Game 5 last night in New York, and we got to get right back. We got to get into it because there's a lot to discuss. There's so much to discuss that I decided to put 3 different segments about this game. So let's just unpack everything that we have to talk about here. From the top, we have to start off by talking about this defense last night. The New York Knicks beating the Indiana Pacers 111-94 in what was honestly a game that was just a defensive masterclass from the New York Knicks. That was the best defensive game we've seen from the Knicks all playoff long. It seems like they finally cracked the code of the Pacers offense, just being able to play at their own pace. When you can slow down this Pacers offense and you can turn the game into your own and make the game your own style, the way that the Knicks like to play, slow pace, defensive, get the ball into Brunson's hands, use the pick and roll with Karl-Anthony Towns, and drive the basketball. If the paint is closed off, use the pick and pop option with Josh Hart on the outside, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. That's why they brought guys in like this. That's why they spent 5 first-round picks on Mikal Bridges, and it paid dividends last night. Obviously, the star of the show was, as expected, Jalen Brunson. I said I'm shocked that Karl-Anthony Towns really played this game, especially after his injury in Game 4, going down with that big knee injury, but nonetheless, Karl-Anthony Towns showed up in a big way last night too, going 10 for 20 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3. Just a big-time game, double-double from him, double-double performance, 24 points, 13 rebounds. Him and Josh Hart going off for double-doubles. So it was an all-around great game from the New York Knicks. But specifically when we're talking about this game, we have to point out the defensive prowess that this New York Knicks team played with last night. The level of intensity, the way they didn't give the Pacers any opportunity to come back, any room to breathe. Every time the Pacers hit a shot, the Knicks bounced right back and threw a haymaker of their own in. It just felt like the Knicks had control of this game from start to finish. That's just truly what happened. But yeah, when we're looking at this game, we have to give. Obviously, I gave Cat a lot of props. Jalen Brunson going off for 32 points. He needed to play a big game, 4 for 7 from 3. He needed to have a big game in this one, and he did. But overall, when we're looking at this game, like I said, the defensive intensity, the The way they were attacking the paint, scoring more than double the points that the Pacers did in the paint. I believe it was 60-34 points in the paint, which is which is an outstanding stat. It's the big reason why they won this game. But overall, outside of that, if you're looking at just the numbers, it was a very close game. If you want to point one thing out, this is why I say the defense was so crucial in this one. This was probably the worst shooting performance from the Pacers all playoffs long. 40% from the field, 30% from three. This is not what we normally expect from a team like this in the Indiana Pacers. We know how they like to play. We know how they shoot the ball, how they play offensively as a group, the level of depth that they have. We'll get into some of this in the next segment coming right up. But when we're specifically talking about this segment, we have to talk about the New York Knicks, and we have to give them major props down the stretch. Using their bench came in crucial in that first half in general, but in that second quarter specifically, being plus 11 with Jalen Brunson on the bench, giving him a rest, giving him an opportunity to rest, and give the guys around him an opportunity to step up, and they did exactly that. Overall, it was just a phenomenal game from the Knicks. Being able to get Landry Shamet involved, Deuce McBride hitting big-time shots down the stretch. Having 5 guys get into double figures for the New York Knicks. Very Indiana Pacers-esque, utilizing their depth. Just overall, just a phenomenal performance from the Knicks. And now they're sitting at a 3-2. They're still down 3-2 in the series. But as this series switches over to Indiana, there is something to watch out for if you're the Indiana Pacers and this New York Knicks team. This Pacers team, as good as they have looked throughout these playoffs, as good as they've looked, this Knicks team is not going to go away they're not going to go away into the darkness like this. They're not going to walk away from this series and just give up. That's what they've proved time and time again, especially in the predicament that they're in now. The Knicks proved that last night, and I think the Pacers are going to come out in Game 6 with a different type of intensity. If you guys think back to how the Pacers showed up in Game 6, or the Knicks showed up in Game 6 against the Celtics, when the Celtics had a big Game 5, I think the Pacers are going to show up in the same way. Are the Knicks going to show up like the Celtics? That's a different question. I think it's going to be a much closer game. But the Pacers are definitely going to take Game 6 on Saturday night with an intensity like a Game 7. This is on their home floor. They have an opportunity to close out this series on their home floor for their first trip to the NBA Finals since 2000, for the first time in 25 years. And they have an opportunity to do it on their home floor. Tyrese Halliburton's going to show up, the whole Pacers organization. Rick Carlisle has this whole team ready to go. And whether or not this was their plan all along, I'm not saying that, but because they have an opportunity to do this. The same way that the Thunder did 2 nights ago when they closed out the Timberwolves on their home floor, the Knicks have the same opportunity tonight or on Saturday night. So, yeah, if we're looking at this Knicks team, they're definitely not out of the water, but they definitely still have a lot of work to do. They have to figure out a way to win Game 6. They have to. If they don't, obviously the series is over. But yeah, I don't think anybody. I'm not picking the Knicks in a big Game 6 like this. When we're looking across the board, we know Karl-Anthony Towns how good he is. We know Jalen Brunson how good he is. We know Josh Hart how much of a utility guy he's proven to be for this Knicks squad. Mikal Bridges has shown up in big moments down the stretch as a shooter. Just overall, this team is very team oriented. They're not individual guys. They're not like thinking about a team that's very individualized. You don't even see very much of that. Maybe the Lakers from back in these teams like this, big threes just don't work anymore. That's what's continuing to be proven in these playoffs. The Pacers have proven it. The Thunder have proven it. Now the Knicks have proven it throughout these playoffs, shocking us time and time again. The Timberwolves proved it to us as they went on an incredible run to the Western Conference Finals. A team that people didn't expect to make it out of the first round. And how did they do it? Off of their team, using their depth, using a 5-man rotation, getting multiple guys involved on the scoring end of the ball. Overall, when we look at this Knicks squad, we have to be very proud of what they've done to get to this point, but they're not out of the water yet. That's the biggest point that we have to hit home when we're talking about this situation. As well of a performance as they had in Game 5, they must be ready to try and at least figure out a way to replicate that in Game 6. And it's a lot easier said than done, but it's the only thing that can give them a chance in a Game 7, in a coin toss Game 7, to come back and win, to go back to their first NBA Finals since 1999. Funny enough, 1999 was the last NBA Finals appearance for the Knicks, and 2000 was the last NBA Finals appearance for the Pacers. Is that coincidence? Who knows? But what we're looking at right now, we're looking at a great young structured team in the New York Knicks that were built to beat the Boston Celtics. That's what we've heard time and time again. But are they built to beat the New Indiana Pacers? That is the question. The way that the Celtics and Pacers play are so completely different on opposite sides of the spectrum. One team is very individual oriented with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Obviously, they still have Drew Holiday and Derek White, but they love to shoot the long ball. And then you have the New York Knicks, you have the Indiana Pacers, who's very team oriented. You have a bunch of guys that play fast with pace, space, in transition. They also shoot a lot of threes, but you also have 6, 7, 8 guys that can go into your rotation that can go for 10-plus points. That is what makes them different from almost any other team in the NBA. And the Knicks, while they did have tough times figuring it out at first, they might have figured it out as this series has waned. But, yeah, I'm going to leave it on that note. Coming up next, I'm going to take a short break. Coming up next, we're going to switch gears over to the Pacers side of things. What went wrong for them, as well as does this game give cause to pause for the Pacers as this series draws on? Because not only are the Thunders hanging in the balance, waiting for the winner of this team, just waiting and getting an exceptional period of rest, but the Knicks did prove that they can beat the Pacers last night. If there was a game that really proved to me that the Knicks can beat the Pacers in a series, last night was a big sign of it. It really was. But you're watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. As we're getting into our next segment here, we're switching gears over from the New York Knicks side of things last night over to the Pacers. What went wrong for the Pacers in Game 5? We'll discuss a little bit about Tyrese Halliburton. It looked like he reverted a little bit to his regular season self. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about as we get into this segment. And as the series draws on, does Game 5 last night give the Pacers a little cause to pause? In a way, part of me feels like this game reminded me a little bit of Game 5 between the Knicks and Celtics, when the Celtics came out in a big way on their home floor and simply were not getting eliminated on their home floor. But at the same time, the Knicks did play an exceptional style of basketball last night, and it looked like they shut down the Pacers in a big way. So is that a sign for things to come? That is the question that we're going to be tackling here in this segment. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on air, ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list, so I see it. It also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. And I've said it before, you guys are a big part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network, so leave a comment, leave a question, any takes that you want me to give my opinion on, feel free to leave them in the chat, and it makes this show much more interactive, and it's greatly appreciated across the board. So if you have anything at all, feel free to leave it in the chat below, and I'll make sure to get to those as soon as I can. But let's jump right back into this segment here, because this is a big game, and like I said, we have a lot to discuss about this game. Some of it is about the game, some of it is predictions moving forward. But this game last night is going to be the biggest headline about this for this entire podcast. It just is. Not only, unfortunately, there's no other conference finals game as the Western Conference Finals are officially over, but we're still trying to figure out who the Thunder are going to face in the NBA Finals. There's only 3 teams left, and the Knicks are hanging on by a thread, and they've given themselves a lifeline to hang on to. The question is, can they win a Game 6 in Indiana? And that's the question that we're going to be answering. We answered that question from a Knicks perspective last segment. We're going to switch it up and look at it from the Pacers standpoint, because we got to look at both sides of the coin here. When we're looking at Game 5 last night, I brought up the defense from the New York Knicks that was stifling. The Pacers had 20 turnovers last night. Something that we haven't really seen from them very much throughout these playoffs. But I think the biggest headline of this game last night from a Pacers standpoint was the lack of play from Tyrese Halliburton. This is a guy that's already been mentioned, as we've seen the last 24 hours or so, being thrown around in the conversation of, is he the next face of the NBA? Is he the next big, is he a superstar at the moment? Is he this? Is he that? Putting him in conversations with SGA, with Jokic, with Jason Tatum, with Anthony Edwards, conversations like that. And a lot of people said yes. I was one of them. I still think he is. But last night specifically was not his best performance. Last night was very regular season-esque. Last night was a big reason why people don't put him in that conversation. They still don't. 8 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds in 32 minutes. A very mediocre game from Tyrese Halliburton. Something we don't normally see. I apologize for that. Something we don't normally see from Tyrese Halliburton these days as a player that's really shown up in a big way, especially in the playoffs. 2 for 7 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, minus 23 in his plus-minus ratio when he's on the floor. Just overall, it was not a great night from him at all. At all. He had two steals, a block, so he showed up big time on the defensive end of the ball a little bit, but in terms of offensive usage, 8 points, and you're the star player of a team. When I got on Anthony Edwards, this is a different predicament because Anthony Edwards was down was down 2-1 and was down 3-1 in a series, but mainly 2-1 in that game 4 between the Timberwolves and Thunder. I got on Anthony Edwards because he was not shooting the ball enough. It's a big game 4. You're on your home floor. You have an opportunity to bring it back to OKC, tied at 2 games apiece if you win this game. You know that the Thunder are going to come out in a big way, especially when you blew them out the way that you did in game 3. And you only put up 11 shots, or you only put up 13 shots in a game, and you're you're the star player in your team. You have guys like Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Mike Conley as well, either matching up or shooting more shots than you in a game, in a big game 4, and you're the superstar of your team. You can't have that if you're Anthony Edwards, and that's the biggest reason why I got on him about that. The second the Timberwolves lost game 4 was the second this series was over. knew game 1 and game 2. If you had split one of those two, if you were Minnesota, you had an opportunity. But you lose both. You win game 3. You give yourself a chance. Game 4 comes around, and the Timberwolves gave the Timberwolves bench gave them the best opportunity they could. Jaden McDaniels showed up in a big way. A bunch of guys went off for 20 plus points, and Anthony Edwards only 16 points, only 13 shots. It's just we know that a star player just needs to shoot the ball more in those moments, and that's the biggest thing that I got on Anthony Edwards about in that game. But it's a similar standpoint that I'm about to say with Tyrese Halliburton. 7 total shots, 2 threes, 8 points. I know the Knicks played a great style of defense on you. We're trying to get the ball out of your hands. We're double teaming you as much as possible. I get it. But you can still put up more than 7 shots in a game. You can have if you're not shooting the ball as much, you can have more than 6 assists in a game. You can have rebounds. You're a tall 6'8" point guard. Overall, this is a Tyrese Halliburton that can play at a higher level and can play multiple positions on the floor. Can play the 1 through 3 fantastically, can rebound, can shoot, can assist. If I'm going to say that Tyrese Halliburton is showing me shades of Magic Johnson, like I've said over the last month and a half now, I can't sit here and say that Tyrese Halliburton had a great game last night. And overall, if there was one player that I had to put the blame on, I'd probably put it on him, especially with him being the superstar player of the team. Outside of him, Benedict Mathurin was the leading scorer of this team. Had a great game 5 with 23 points. Tried to give the Pacers as much time as they could to get their offense sparking. Pascal Siakam also had 15. Obi Toppin with 11. A bunch of guys showed up for the Indiana Pacers. But when we're looking at the star player of the team, he is the guy that we have to look at to step up in those moments. And that's why I'm saying Game 5 gave the Pacers a little bit of a cause to pause. It's a big game. You have a big Game 6. You still have an opportunity to redeem yourself. And I think it would speak volumes if Tyrese Halliburton did have a big bounce back game in Game 6. But at the same time, you had an opportunity to close out Game 5 on the road. If they'd won a Game 5, he has won Game 7. He won Game 7 in MSG last year against these same New York Knicks. So he's already won in MSG before. But at the same time, it would have shut up all the critics. It would have shut down all critics about that he's not a superstar talent. If he had shown up in a big way last night, went off for 25 points in a closeout game, even if the Pacers had lost by a couple of points, but if Tyrese Halliburton wasn't the reason why the Pacers had lost, we wouldn't be talking about him in the way that we are right now. But nonetheless, this is the situation that we're in. If you're the Pacers, you need to shoot the ball at a better level, at a higher clip, and we know that they can. They've done it before. They've done it all playoffs long. They shoot normally around 45-50% from the field, around high 30, low 40% from 3. So we know that they can shoot at a higher level, and they could shoot much better than they did last night. But when we're looking at last night alone, there was a little bit of worry. If you're the Pacers, there's a little bit of worry. And if you're the Knicks, you instantly get a boost of confidence, an instant boost of hope that if there's a way to win Game 6, that you have a good chance of winning Game 7. So, yeah. Overall, Game 5 gives the Pacers cause to pause as the series draws on. But I'm still picking the Pacers to bounce back in Game 6. That's the biggest thing that I have to say. The Pacers are still the best team in the Eastern Conference, are still one of the best teams in the league. I still think they're destined to face the Oklahoma City Thunder in the finals. And I think it would be a much more exciting finals than if the New York Knicks showed up in OK. I think if the Knicks played OKC in the finals, I would not be shocked if we see a 4-0 sweep. I really wouldn't. But if we see the Pacers, on the other hand, I could see a much closer series. I could see a 5-6, maybe a 7-game series, which would be exceptional if we saw that. But for right now, this is all we got for now. Knicks going to New York, or Knicks or the Pacers go into New York and drop a big game 5, and this series will switch gears back over to Indiana in what will be a much-needed, a must-win game 6 for the Pacers. That's all that needs to be said, and that's exactly where I'm going to leave it off. I'm going to take a short break. Coming up next, we're going to switch gears over to the WNBA, actually. And we're going to discuss Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark coming up with a big injury about a week ago now. I definitely should have addressed this a little bit ago, but with the state of the NBA, with the offseason making a little bit of noise, with the playoffs making a lot of noise right now, it's just fallen underneath the sheets of the agenda. But especially with a big matchup coming up against Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, without Caitlin Clark on the floor, it's going to be interesting to see how the Indiana Fever are able to stack up in that game, in a big game on Saturday night. But we're gonna preview that game and give you an update on that injury. So you're watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, we're switching gears over to the WNBA, a part of this basketball world that we don't touch on nearly enough as we should. But when big news comes out, we have to talk about it when we can. Caitlin Clark sustaining a big injury last week against I believe it was the Mystics. A big loss for Caitlin Clark, suffering a quad strain. Looks like she's just going to be it's just a week-to-week injury at the moment, and it's just a strain, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. But the reason why it is a little bit of a headline right now is because they have a big matchup coming up late this weekend, tomorrow actually, against the Chicago Sky. And if you guys don't know anything about the WNBA, there's a player by the name of Angel Reese on the Chicago Sky that, let's just say, those two ladies don't like each other very much. If you guys can remember, about it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese got into a little bit of a fight, not a fight, but a scuffle on the court. Long story short, one of the Fever players, what was it? No, it was Angel Reese was in the low post, drops her shoulder into one of the Fever players. Fever player goes down onto the court. Clark looking for an offensive foul, and then just tries to rip the ball away from Angel Reese. Some people will say it was a little bit of a little extracurricular than what was supposed to be, but honestly, at the end of the day, if you watch the replay, it was just Caitlin Clark looking like she was just going for a jump ball situation, or just trying to strip the ball in general. She's got both hands on the ball and tried to strip it. The problem was she tried to strip it. Angel Reese held onto the ball and was thrown to the floor with it. Reese taking high exceptions to it, bouncing right up and getting right into Caitlin Clark's face. Caitlin Clark turning right away to face the bench, turning away from Angel Reese, but Reese was having none of it. If Caitlin Clark had not turned around, I would not be shocked if we saw more than just a little bit of jawing of Angel Reese just jawing at her. We probably would have seen a couple punches thrown, but that's neither here nor there. When we look at this game on Saturday night, we see two teams that obviously don't like each other, but without Caitlin Clark on the floor, the Indiana Fever are nowhere near as good as they normally are. That's the biggest question. That's the biggest problem. To put into perspective, without Caitlin Clark, before Caitlin Clark was a member of the Indiana Fever, has it really been 2 years? I was gonna say last year, but I guess it's been 2 years now. Before she was on the team, the Fever were nowhere. And when I say nowhere, they were the number 1 overall pick. They were the worst team in the WNBA. They had achieved the worst record in the WNBA. And since she has found her way onto the team, they've not only picked up bigger prospects like Aaliyah Boston, like DeWanna Bonner. They've picked up a bunch of players that have uplifted this team. But Caitlin Clark is the player that makes everyone glue. She's the player that she runs the offense. To put into NBA perspective, think about it like the way SGA makes the Thunder play. The Thunder are still a great team, and they have a bunch of great pieces around them. But SGA is the player that makes everyone glue to one another. He's the playmaker. He's the guy that makes everyone better. Same way Halliburton does with the Pacers. So that's a type of impact that Caitlin Clark has on her team. And without her on the floor, I don't think that the Fever will have enough firepower to take down the Chicago Sky. But that's neither here nor there when we're looking at these two teams. Also, I don't know why I said it was tomorrow. I meant it was next Saturday, but that's neither here nor there. In that case, we'll probably be right back here to preview that matchup. Honestly, let's just fix this right now. If we're going to do this, we're probably going to have to do this once again next week. But that's neither here nor there. I had no idea it was next week. So sorry about that, guys. For this segment, we'll just keep it with Caitlin Clark and her injury and how much it impacts the Indiana Fever. But yeah, since we're on the topic, we'll just keep rolling with it. The Chicago Sky, led by Angel Reese. Angel Reese also has a big impact on that team. If we're going to compare it to somebody in the NBA world, think of her like an Anthony Davis of the WNBA. The way she's able to rebound the ball, the way she's very unique in the ways that she's able to rebound. She's more of a power forward, but she can play both positions, both power forward and center. Being able to shoot the ball at times, being a big presence on the interior as a defensive threat, anchoring that defense. Angel Reese plays a big role on the Chicago Sky. But at the same time, I think the Sky are much better built around Angel Reese than they are around Caitlin Clark in Indiana. That's the biggest thing that we got to point out with this. And that's why I'm saying Caitlin Clark's injury is so vital to this Fever squad. Overall, when we're looking at these two teams, obviously the Fever have the edge just because of their ability to shoot the ball. Aaliyah Boston obviously is a dynamic duo with Caitlin Clark. It's gonna be interesting to see if Caitlin Clark can get on the floor come next week. I still can't believe I thought it was tomorrow, but come next week. But for now, all we can say is the Fever still have a bunch of games to play. They just recently lost to the Washington Mystics last night. And they also lost to New York Liberty, who are obviously one of the best teams in the WNBA in the New York Liberty. But for now, it's still very early on into the season, and there's still a lot of games to be played. But the Fever in Chicago Sky could be on a collision course come playoff time. They really could. And that would be an unbelievable series if we did end up seeing that. Obviously, both teams are not in the highest caliber of place. The Fever are 2-3. Chicago Sky are 1-4. And it's very early on into the season. But if we're going to continue to project what to expect with these two teams moving forward, we can't have the conversation without both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It just won't happen. It just doesn't feel right to talk about both of them in that standpoint because of the impacts that they have on their teams. Caitlin Clark will be back. This is not an injury that will put her away for a while. Probably should be back by mid-June, I'd say. But for now, the Fever have to figure out a way to stay afloat in a similar way to any team that loses their star player, their best player. The same way the Celtics have to figure it out without Jason Tatum on the floor. Same way that I'm trying to think of any other team. I can't think of any other team that had injury this offseason or during the playoffs. Regardless, that's just the state of the WNBA right now. But I'm gonna leave it on that note just because I wish there was a little bit more to talk about, but that's all we got for that topic right now. It looks like both players are playing at a great clip, and since it's early on in the season, there's just not a whole lot to talk about. I'm gonna leave it on that note. Coming up next, we're gonna switch gears back over to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like I said, there's 3 segments that we're going to talk about this series with. I promise this is the last one, but we have to talk about this one as well. Does the with the Eastern Conference Finals taking longer than expected, does it play in favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder that are taking some well-needed rest before these NBA Finals kick off next Thursday? That is the question that we're going to be tackling in this next segment. And just how long is this series going to drag on for? I know we've talked about it a little bit in these last 2 segments, but we'll revisit that topic in the next segment coming right up. You're watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, we are going to discuss does this series in the Eastern Conference Finals taking a little bit longer than expected play in the favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder, giving them ample rest, giving them time to give them just much needed rest. The one team that obviously this is going to hit near and dear to me. I've mentioned this before. I am from Boston. I am a Celtics fan, and I make a lot of connections with them when we're talking about this. But if you guys think back to 2022, what was the biggest storyline that we discussed with the Boston Celtics in that game, in that final series with the Golden State Warriors, especially after that Game 4? A lot of reports came out that a bunch of the players on the Celtics were just exhausted, flat out exhausted, needed time to rest, and needed time to get their minds and bodies ready to go for the NBA Finals. And I think it was a 4 or 5 day turnaround between the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, and the finals beginning. On the other side with the Warriors, I believe they had about a week and a half's rest. And look how well it paid for them, especially down the stretch. The Celtics may have came out with a blast, one Game 1, one Game 3, and we're up 2-1 going into Game 4 on their home floor. But especially after that demoralizing loss in Game 4, especially after getting blown out in Game 5, and what they just looked flat out exhausted in Game 5. They got the brakes beat off them. By the time Game 6 rolled around, these guys were just exhausted, flat out, and it was a big storyline in the NBA back in the day. Sorry, I'm fidgeting. But it was a big storyline back in the day with that. This is a similar situation to that, in my opinion. When we're looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder with their youth, they are incredibly young, and they definitely have a bunch of experience. Or no, they have a bunch of time to grow around one another, and they have a higher level of endurance since they're much younger. But when we're still looking at this Oklahoma City Thunder team, not only does more time give them more time of rest, but it gives them more time for preparation that that this Oklahoma City Thunder team is using to their advantage, especially with the exceptional level of head coaching that Oklahoma City has. And overall, the fans will be ready to go. The coaching staff, SGA, is ready to go. The rest of the players, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, that big three has played phenomenally down the stretch, and they're getting some much needed rest. I think this series taking much longer than expected not only plays in favor of the Thunder, but it plays in favor of the Thunder for more rest. But it makes sure that whoever comes out of the Eastern Conference Finals will not be well rested. They might be battle tested, and they might have if any Eastern Conference Finals team wins this series, wins the finals, either the Pacers or Knicks, it will basically be built on grit and grind. It won't be based on energy. It won't be based on rest. None of that. It's going to be, the storyline will be that the Thunder collapsed if they lose these NBA Finals. Every sign is pointing in their favor to win this year's finals. It truly is. If we look across the board, rest, players, being battle tested, coming out of a gauntlet of a Western Conference. Just through and through, it looks like all signs are pointing to the Thunder winning these NBA Finals. Nonetheless, they still got to do it. They got to win 4 out of the next 7 games. But first, we got to figure out who they're going to play. And when we're talking about that, how long is this Eastern Conference Finals series really going to last? I thought this series was going to end last night. But nonetheless, I still think this series ends in Game 6. If there is some smidge of an opportunity, some smidge of a chance that the Knicks are able to force a Game 7, that's a different discussion for another day. And in that situation, I have to switch gears and go with the New York Knicks in that Game 7. Just on their home floor, with the way that Madison Square Garden will be ready to go, there's no way that they drop 2 Game 7s against the Indiana Pacers on their home floor. They did it last year in a Game 7. They blew a 3-2 lead in that series. And I personally just don't see the Pacers doing that. With how good the Pacers are, I just don't think that they are built on a notion like that. They're not built on just, I'm going to lose and fall over. They're not. They're a bounce back team. They're exceptionally well coached by Rick Carlisle. They're exceptionally well led by Tyrese Halliburton and the group that's over there with Andrew Nembhard, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam. They're incredibly deep, and they're going to be ready to go for these Eastern Conference Finals. Whether or not the New York Knicks tired themselves out or not in Game 5, going all out, that's another note. That is another perspective that we have to take a look at. But when we're just looking at a logistics perspective, take luck out, take exhaustion out. If we're just looking at logistics, taking one team and taking the other. Are you taking the team with talent, with star-studded talent in their top 5, but only have a 5-6 guy rotation that plays about 40 to 50 minutes a night? Or are you going to take the other team that you have a starting 5 where your best players only play about 30 to 35 minutes a night, but your guys, you have about an 8 to 9 guy rotation. You have a bunch of guys on your bench that you can bring in to give your starters rest. And they possibly just had a really bad shooting night in Game 5. Not only, while the Knicks did play good defense, the Pacers missed a lot of shots last night. And that's the biggest thing that we have to hit home about this game. The amount of shots that the Pacers missed last night was not only concerning, but it was a big reason why they lost that game. And if they hadn't missed those shots, perhaps we're looking at this series being over right now instead of talking about a Game 7 hanging in the balance. But nonetheless, with SGA waiting, with Chet Holmgren waiting, with Jalen Williams waiting, this NBA Finals looks like it's pointing straight for the Oklahoma City Thunder. While I still would pick the Pacers over the Thunder in a 7-game series, even though some people would call me crazy, I think the Pacers just are playing phenomenal basketball. And the Thunder just haven't run into a team that are like them. They have forced teams to play. They've faced the Nuggets. The Nuggets are the closest team that the Pacers have played to themselves. The Thunder have played comparable to the Indiana Pacers. And even then, it's a different game. You don't have a guy like Nikola Jokic on the Pacers. You don't have a guy like Tyrese Halliburton on the Denver Nuggets. And with all due respect, as much as I love Jamal Murray is not Tyrese Halliburton. He's not. I'm sorry. That might be crazy to say. And a lot of people probably ruffle some feathers. But I think Tyrese Halliburton is a better player than Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is phenomenal. His phenomenal footwork. He's able to shoot the ball at an exceptional level. Playoff Murray is a real thing. But Tyrese Halliburton is on another level. The way he's able to facilitate, the way he's able to make the guys around him better, the way he's able to lead that offense. Imagine if Nikola Jokic is Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic is Tyrese Halliburton, and Siakam is Jamal Murray on the Pacers. That's just the best way to explain it, and I'm going to leave it at that because I've had enough confusing you guys, and I've had enough. You guys probably don't understand a word I'm saying, but that's just the state of the NBA right now. It really is. And the Eastern Conference Finals are right around the corner. We have an exceptional series, Game 6, slated for us on Saturday night. That I personally cannot wait for. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I would not be shocked if we see a blowout win for the Indiana Pacers, but I personally want to see a battle. I want to see a battle between these two teams. I want Game 6 to look like a Game 7 in Indiana. I think it will between both of these teams, and I don't think the New York Knicks are going to shy away into the night like the Boston Celtics did in their Game 6 against the Knicks. But I really think these Pacers are just destined to face up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I really think I not only think that they're the better team, I think they're a better team than the Knicks, but I flat out think it would be a better series against the Thunder. And without my Celtics in the league, of course, we got to roll with the Pacers. We got to roll with the best matchup. We got to roll with what will be the most competitive, the most fireworks, the most popcorn, the most, as we like to call, cinema in our days, in our generation. That's what we're looking for in series, in the NBA Finals. We're looking for an exciting matchup. And while the Knicks have a great fan base, and all due respect to all Knicks fans everywhere that might be watching this, I think you guys would agree with me when I say the Indiana Pacers would on paper be a more competitive matchup against the Thunder than you guys would. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Don't blame me. I'm just the basketball guy. Don't blame me. Let me know what you guys think though. Overall, I think the series will play in favor of the Thunder, and they're going to get some much-needed rest. Will the Pacers still be up for the task to go up against the Thunder? Yes, but especially if that series goes 7 games, I think it falls in favor of the Thunder. I think it will go 7 games, but I think it'll fall in favor of the Thunder if it does. If the Knicks play the Thunder, we'll get there, and it'll probably be a 4 or 5 game series, and that the Thunder end up winning. But I'm going to leave it on that note because we can't get too far ahead of ourselves, and I feel like I've done that a little bit in that segment, and I apologize for that. I have gotten a little bit ahead of myself in this segment talking about the NBA Finals. I'm going to leave it on that note because in the next segment coming right up, I'm very excited to give my predictions for what to expect come this weekend with the Eastern Conference Finals hopefully coming to a close. If not, we'll discuss a Game 7 preview on Monday morning. But for now, we got to discuss, this is what we got with the Eastern Conference Finals right now. 3-2 series going back to Indiana with a Game 6 in the balance. That's what we're going to discuss in the next segment coming right up. You're watching GSMC Basketball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, into our last segment of the show, I know we've talked a lot about the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks series, and I apologize. I promise you, this is probably the one and only time we will be fixated around one topic to this degree. I love the NBA, and I love talking NBA. But even sometimes, even as a Celtics fan, after a while, you just don't like talking about the Knicks as much. I think the Knicks fans would agree with me when they're talking about the Celtics as well. If you guys would like, if anybody's watching this, I'm not sure if I have any viewers on this right now. I'm not always looking at them. But if you guys have any questions or comments to leave in the chat, feel free to leave them, please, because I greatly appreciate them beyond more than what you know. This is one of those moments where those comments come in and they come in clutch, as we like to say. They really do. They're more than you guys think. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat. Anthony, what's up, man? That's awesome, Dan. Timing. I haven't talked to you in a long time, man. It's good to see you in the chat. But when we're talking about Game 6 on Saturday night, let me give my quick prediction, and if you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. Anything for me to answer that's on your guys' mind about the NBA world. When we're talking about this Game 6 on tomorrow night, we're talking about Tyrese Halliburton. We're talking about Jalen Brunson. This is going to be like a Game 7. I said this. I didn't say this. I didn't actually say this about the Knicks Celtics series until after. But the stars are what show up in these games. It really does. When it comes down to Game 6, when you're in the NBA playoffs, when you're in the Eastern Conference Finals, you have a Game 6 on your home floor. You have the opportunity to close out the road team who's down 3-2. You get the opportunity to shut the door on them. On the other side, the road team is down 3-2. They want an opportunity. They're begging for an opportunity to go back home for a massive, massive Game 7, winner-go-home series, which would propel that team onto the NBA Finals. And in this situation specifically, the reason that makes it even bigger, 1999 was the last time the New York Knicks were in the NBA Finals. 2000 was the last time the Indiana Pacers win the NBA Finals. These are two teams that are starving for this opportunity, especially with the Indiana Pacers with their youth and how much they have going on in with their game, with their team. This is a team that is star-studded, that is ready to go, that is ready to win in the NBA. They ran into the Boston Celtics last year, who ultimately won the NBA championship. This year, they get the team that knocked out the Celtics. And frankly, the Pacers look like they're a better team than the Knicks right now. But across the board, on the Knicks, on the Pacers standpoint, you got Tyrese Halliburton, who needs to step up after playing, frankly, average, mediocre, below average. Pretty bad for a star, but below average. It looked like he reverted back to regular season. Overrated Tyrese Halliburton. The overrated Tyrese Halliburton that the NBA group agreed upon was overrated. That was the Tyrese Halliburton that showed up in Game 5 last night. That's number one. Pascal Siakam is going to show up in a big way as the NBA champion that he is. He's been in these situations, and he's been around the NBA for long enough that he'll be ready to go for this Game 6 tomorrow night. Across the board, I think the depth of the Indiana Pacers is going to show up in Game 6, especially down the stretch. I think it's going to be a much closer game than Game 5 was. I don't think either team is going to have a 15-plus point lead. I think we're in for a game that's going to be back and forth. Both teams just maybe the max lead that we see for either team is maybe 7 or 8 points. But I think it just goes back and forth with lead changes, like 20-plus lead changes in a game. You know those games that are just both teams just going back and forth until the final shot of the game? I think that's what we expect tonight, or that's what we expect tomorrow night. Jalen Brunson, I expect to go off for 30-plus points. Anthony Towns, I expect for 20-plus points. And I think Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby have 20 plus or more points. I think one of those two guys shows up. If not, if both of them show up the same way that we've seen all four of these guys show up to go off for 20 plus points before in these playoffs, the Indiana Pacers might be in for a Game 7 back in New York, because I don't think anybody can beat that Knicks team. When the Knicks play like that, I don't think anybody can beat them. But when we're looking at this game right now, when we're trying to preview it, when we're trying to give a prediction on it, I think I'm so sorry. I'm getting distracted on my computer screen. Notifications. But when we're looking at these two teams right now, we got an Indiana Pacers team. We have to roll with the Pacers. We have to. We have to roll with Tyrese Halliburton. We have to roll with the home team on this one. As much as I think the Knicks have a chance to do it, I truly think that that Tyrese Halliburton is built for this moment, and he's going to be ready to get it done. This is his moment to shine. He did it last year to New York in New York. This time around, he has an opportunity to go to his first NBA Finals of his career, bring the team to their first NBA Finals since 2000 on their home floor in Indiana. This is an opportunity that they're not going to pass up. The Oklahoma City Thunder didn't do it 2 nights ago. The Indiana Pacers are not going to do it tomorrow. If they do, this series could flip on its head in New York's favor. But I'm not picking it to happen. If it does happen, we'll be right back here on Monday to preview Game 7. And I promise you, the first thing I will say on the top of the show, I will say, I stand down. I was wrong. New York Knicks and Thunder NBA Finals is what you're going to expect in a Game 7. But for now, this is what we got for Game 6. I'm rolling with the Pacers to meet the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. And I'm going to leave it on that note because we got to get to these comments, like I said. Anthony, thank you so much for leaving these comments. What is the last playoff team you can remember, like the New York Knicks, where they have blown multiple 20 to... Anthony, I know what you're saying because I know you're a Heat fan. We've talked about this before too. The last playoff team that I remember, like this New York Knicks team, is yes, the Boston Celtics of 2023. But I don't see this Knicks team being like the Celtics back in the day, forcing a Game 7 back in New York. Or I don't see them forcing a Game 7 like the Celtics did back in Boston. I don't see the Knicks forcing Game 7 back in New York. I just don't. I also think this Pacers team might be better than that Heat team. I really think I think so. That might be crazy to say, but I think this Pacers team is really underrated, and I think they're playing at an exceptionally high level. So yes, the last playoff team that I can remember playing like this is the Celtics, and that team brings back trauma. So we're gonna leave it on that note because that was all I can think about now is Jason Tatum holding his ankle in the first 15 seconds of that game, in that what if moment. But you also left another comment. I like Jalen Brunson. The New York Knicks are paying him like a star, but technically he's a good player. But he's not a star or a superstar, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, Anthony. Jalen Brunson is a superstar in this league. He's a top 3-point guard in the NBA, in my opinion, right now. He really is. It's borderline impossible to not say so. The way he's one clutch player of the year. He's one of the best players in the league right now. Jalen Brunson is he's the reason why the New York Knicks are where they are right now. The way he carried them against the Pistons, the way he carried them against the Celtics, the way he's carried them in the games that the Knicks have won against these same Pacers. He's a big reason why they are where they are right now. And you might say the only argument that you can say against him was Game 1, where he had 7 turnovers, where they botched that 16-point lead in the last 6 minutes of that game, and I get that. But at the same time, you roll with the guys that you have around you, and I still think that this is Tom Thibodeau's last year as the head coach of the New York Knicks. I know that he's brought them really far into the playoffs, but I personally, if I was Leon Rose and I was the front office of this New York Knicks team, I would say that the Knicks they've been the same team that they've been all the team. The team, it just feels like the Knicks have not changed. They haven't changed their ideology since the second Tom Thibodeau was introduced in New York. They may have brought in some better players, some better talent, but at the same time, that 5-6 guy mentality, that 40 to 50 minutes a game mentality that Tom Thibodeau loves to run their starters into the ground. It feels like that's never going to change if you're in Tom Thibodeau's life. He hasn't done it in the last 20 years. He didn't do it with Derrick Rose. He didn't do it in Minnesota when Minnesota ran him out of town before Coach Finch now over there was hired. When we're looking at the New York Knicks, it just feels like they haven't changed. But Jalen Brunson truly is a superstar in this league. I really think he is. He's one of the best young talents in the league. And I think this Knicks team will win a championship eventually. The problem is that they built this team around trying to beat the Boston Celtics. They didn't build this team to beat the Indiana Pacers. And the Pacers are just a different style to the Celtics. But yeah, you left another comment. What I consider a superstar is the guy who is the face of the league and a person who's always getting endorsements. I don't see a lot of commercial Brunson. Bro, look it up. I saw a couple last night. They're everywhere. I don't think that's fair. There's commercials of Jalen Brunson out there, but at the same time, Jalen Brunson he's doing a bunch of stuff off the court as well. He has his own podcast with Josh Hart. We've seen him on ESPN before as an analyst. We've seen him on NBA on TNT. He's been everywhere. He's a star player of the biggest of one of the biggest. He's of the top 3 market in the NBA. Outside of the Knicks, the only team that I could think of being a bigger market than them is the Los Angeles Lakers. Maybe. Even then, that's an argument that's an argument for another day. It's very debatable. But Brunson is leading this team. He's the heart and soul. He's the heart and soul of the New York Knicks right now. And I think he's a superstar. He's the reason why they are where they are today. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think the Knicks would get to where they are today. I think he might not be the face of the league yet, but I think if they won the Eastern Conference Finals, it would catapult him into that conversation. If Anthony Edwards is in that conversation for face of the league, I think Jalen Brunson should deserve to be so if he wins this playoff series. I don't think he will. I think he might next year or 2 years from now. I think a championship for the Knicks is in. I think this is the start of their championship window. This year is the first year of probably a 3-year window or so for the New York Knicks to win a title. But I think for right now, I think Brunson is in that. I think Brunson is a superstar talent, in my opinion. That's just my take on it. He's just a phenomenal player, clutch player of the year, comes up in big moments time and time again, is a heart and soul of the team. If we put Anthony Edwards in there, the only reason we would put Brunson not in that conversation is the same reason we wouldn't put Jason Tatum in that conversation. Because Brunson is a Class A guy, does not talk a lot, just shows up, plays basketball, and leaves. And honestly, call me crazy, but I think he might do that better than Jason Tatum does. Jason Tatum has a great team around him, has a guy in the name of Jaylen Brown that covers him for a lot of his ailments time and time for a lot of the time. Jalen Brunson is pretty much a one-man wrecking crew. He's been that way, and he continues to be that way, especially when Karl-Anthony Towns is not shooting the ball the way he was. When Jalen Brunson was with Julius, this is my last note. When Jalen Brunson was with Julius Randle last year, he was covering his butt a long time for a lot of the time. Julius Randle, anytime that Julius Randle would lose his confidence and wouldn't shoot the ball very well, Jalen Brunson would be there to carry the load and take care of whatever that needed to be done. I'm going to leave it on that note, though. That's just my take on it. Thank you guys for watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We appreciate your guys' support as always, so be sure to leave a positive review in the comments below. Whether it's positive, whether it's negative, let us know what we're doing well, let us know what we can improve upon. You guys are a big part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network, and we appreciate your support as always. Let us know how we can improve our product so we can continue to entertain you guys and more fans that continue to join the GSMC Sports Network. For more content and updates, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Thank you guys for watching GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi, signing off. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Fridays and a wonderful weekend in general. Be sure to catch Game 6 tomorrow night. I think tip-off is 7:30 or 8 o'clock tomorrow night, but be sure to watch that game. It's going to be a phenomenal game if you guys have time for it. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be right back here at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit.